What's up, Alex Sports Show fam, and welcome to another edition of the Alex Sports Show with your host, Alec Pecano. Today's show is fully loaded. We've got way too early college football predictions with a look at 8 teams' schedules, and I will give you their win totals, NBA upset picks, and stay tuned at the end of the video. I made a deal with y'all the other day, and it was if Michigan won the national championship, I have to say something for 2 weeks straight, and at the end of the video, you will hear me say it for the first time for the span of 2 weeks. But let's get into the video. So here's my college football head coach's hot seat top 5 going into next year. Number 5, Neil Brown. Now, Neil Brown saved his job for this year. That doesn't mean if West Virginia has a bad year next year that he can't get fired. But I see an avenue where Neil Brown completely gets his name taken off the hot seat chart for any content creator that does college football. Number 4, Blake Anderson. Now, this one's a little different. He saved his job last year. He was probably going to get fired at the end of last season if he did not have a good season, but Utah State made a bowl game, so that saved his job for the time being. But I think if Utah State starts out 0-2 or 0-3 this year, that Blake Anderson might be fired. Number 3, Mike Houston, East Carolina. I was one of the people that was surprised that Mike Houston did not get fired in this cycle of the coaching carousel. I'm surprised East Carolina kept him and didn't get rid of him. By my standards, they had a horrible season. Just awful. And I can see if they have another bad season, or if they start off 0-1 or 0-2, maybe 0-3, Mike Houston might get the thumb. He might get fired. Number 2, this is another one that was very surprising to me that he's coming back. I understand the boosters probably wanted him back for another year. Sam Pittman, Arkansas. Now, Arkansas had a beyond dreadful. They had a dreadful season last year. I believe they went 4-7. KJ Jefferson transferred to UCF. And I don't see how, and they hired Bobby Petrino to be their offensive coordinator again. And we all know the story of Bobby Petrino and why he got fired in the first place at Arkansas. I think if Arkansas struggles to start next year, that Sam Pittman may be the first coach fired in the season, during the season next season. And number 1, and this one shouldn't be very surprising to many people, it is Shane Beamer, South Carolina. The only reason he still has a job at South Carolina is because they played really good at the end of the year. But I think if they struggle to start next season, that he gets fired and they have an interim coach come in and maybe turn the program around. And a bonus, James Franklin, Penn State. Now, I don't think this one's going to happen, but it doesn't hurt to say maybe James Franklin is the issue at Penn State because they can't get over the hump. Every year, they end up beating. They can't beat Ohio State. They can't beat Michigan. They're two big games every year, and the last 4 years they failed to beat either Ohio State or Michigan or both. My way too early win projection totals. And let's start with Alabama. I think they're going to win over 10 games again. They returned most. They did have a bunch of guys leave in the portal, but you know how Saban is. He doesn't rebuild. He reloads. And they lost Malik Benson, which, in my opinion, I don't think that's as big of a loss because you got other receivers. They did lose a couple O linemen in the portal, but Jalen Merrill's coming back. Roydell Williams might come back. I don't know. But I still think Bama wins 10 games. Over 10 games. Now, here's where it gets interesting. I have South Carolina winning over 8 games this year. But you did see Shane Beamer's name in the potential head coach's hot seat. Now, there's 2 avenues to this. And one of them is that Shane Beamer leads South Carolina to a bowl game, and they win 8 games with a chance to win their 9th in a bowl game. Or the other way around, they win under 8 games and they still make a bowl game, but they get 8 wins and they push the win total I'm giving them before the season actually starts in 2024. Miami, Florida, under 9 wins. Now, and you're going to see why I don't think they win that many games in 2024 as I will do their schedule. These 8 teams that I'm doing their win projections, the next thing will be their schedule. So be prepared for that. But Miami and Florida, they just got Reese Puffenbarger from Albany. I've watched a lot of tape on the kid. He is really good. And you may see Reese in my segment that I'm doing in a little bit on the transfer portal, on guys that transfer to new schools. Auburn, under 8 wins. The SEC is going to be a tough conference this year. I think Auburn, I say under right now, but I can also see an avenue where they do hit the win total and go over 8 wins. Michigan State fans, here's the thing with this. It's that I can see you winning more than 7 games. I can also see you winning less because it's first season. And let's be real with ourselves. Is he going to lead Michigan State to a bowl game in its first year? Probably not. That is why your win total for me is set at under 7 wins. Tennessee. I was going back and forth with myself on this. Should I give them more than 10 wins? Should I give them less? I said under, because if you look at the SEC, it is going to be stacked next year. Texas is joining. Oklahoma is joining. So I think Tennessee wins under 10 games. And again, after this segment, we will be going over these teams' schedules. And I will tell you what games I think they can win and what games I think will be losses. West Virginia, another team you saw their coach on the hot seat. Neil Brown in West Virginia, over 9 wins. I know the Big 12 is going to be loaded next year with Colorado joining, Utah, Arizona State, Arizona. But I still think West Virginia, there's an avenue where they can win 9 games. And then the last one, Texas Tech, over 8 wins. Now, I am not completely on the Texas Tech hype train yet, but I do think there's a chance they win more than 8 games. And now we're going to go over those teams' schedules, and we will look at the schedule, and I will grade it from A being a really good schedule to an F being terrible. And I will also give you wins and losses. So let's share the screen. And here we go. And where is we going to start? West Virginia. Get off my screen. We need 2024. So West Virginia starts with Penn State on Saturday, August 31st. And this is in Morgantown. I think I think West Virginia beats Penn State. So they're 1-0. I think they start 2-0 because they beat Albany. Pitt, this is where it gets it gets a little wacky. I think they beat Pitt and start 3-0. So they're 3-0 going into the game at Arizona. I think they lose to Arizona. So 3-1. Cincinnati was not particularly good last year. I do see a potential bounce back for Cincinnati, but I think West Virginia beats them, so that's 4-1. They go to Oklahoma State. That's going to be a loss, so 4-2. Texas Tech. That's a loss, 4-3. They beat Baylor, 5-3. I think they beat Kansas. That makes them 6-3. Kansas State lost, 6-4. No, 6-4. Iowa State win, 7-4, and I think they beat UCF to go 8-4. So that is West Virginia. Texas Tech. All right, I want to see that. Give me Texas Tech's 2024 schedule. So Texas Tech opens next year at home against Abilene Christian. I think they win that, so they're 1-0. Then they go to Washington State. Now, I don't know whether they make this a win or a loss. I think right now it's a win because we don't know much about Washington State. So they're 2-0. I think they start 3-0 after beating North Texas. So they're 3-0 going into the Arizona game at Arizona. I think they lose to Arizona, 3-1. They beat Iowa State, 4-1. Lose to Oklahoma State, 4-2. Beat TCU, 5-2. Beat Arizona State, 6-2. Lose to Colorado, 6-3. Beat Baylor, 7-3. Beat Cincinnati, 8-3. And lose to West Virginia, 8-4. And this is a B+ schedule, in my opinion, and same with West Virginia. There's a lot of stuff they could have done better. So now we need Michigan State. So we need the Big Ten now. Let's get 10 East. State. So Michigan State opens the season at home against FAU. Then they go to Maryland. Now, we don't know necessarily what Maryland's going to look like at quarterback. I think that's a loss for Michigan State. So 1-1. Then they come home and play Louisiana University. So that's 2-1. They win. At Boston College, I think Boston College beats them. So they're 2-2. Ohio State, that's a loss. 2-3. Oregon, at Oregon, lost. 2-4. Iowa, that's this is a gauntlet right here. Iowa, Michigan, Indiana. I think Indiana's going to be much improved this year under Kirk Cignetti in his first year. But you will see their win total probably on Friday. But Iowa, that's a win. So 3-4. Michigan's owned Michigan State the last couple of years. So that's a loss. 3-6. Indiana win 4-6. Then they got Illinois, Purdue, Rutgers. I think they beat Illinois 5-6. Lose to Purdue 5-7 and beat Rutgers 6-7. So Michigan State goes 6-7 in their first year under head coach Jonathan Smith. We've got 4 teams left to do their schedule. Now we go to the SEC. And we look up Tennessee. We pull up Tennessee's schedule. Close. So Tennessee, they played Chattanooga to start the year. That's a win, so they're 1-0. Then they have the Duke's Mayo Classic against NC State. I think they win that, so they're 2-0. They start 3-0 when they beat Kent State. Then they start conference play at Oklahoma. I think that's where they lose their first game, so they're 3-1. And then they come home and they play. They come off the bye and they play at Arkansas. That's a win, 4-1. They beat Florida 5-1. The big game on their schedule for me is Alabama, and I think they lose to Alabama, so they're 5-2. Then they get Kentucky, Mississippi State, Georgia, UTEP, and Vanderbilt. So they beat Kentucky 6-2, lose to Mississippi State 6-3, lose to Georgia 6-4, beat UTEP 7-4, and beat Vanderbilt 8-4. So they finish. Tennessee finishes with 8 wins. So we got South Carolina, Auburn, and Miami left. '24 schedule for South Carolina. Let's pull it up. So their first game, Old Dominion at home. I think they win that. At Kentucky, win. So they're 2-0. LSU, that's their first loss of the year, 2-1. I think they beat Akron 3-1. Then they're going to their bye 3-1. They come out and they've got Ole Miss, Alabama, Oklahoma. I think they lose to Ole Miss 3-2, lose to Alabama 3-3, and lose to Oklahoma 3-4. So then they go on a bye week again. Then they come out of the bye and they play at home against A&M on homecoming. I think they win, so 4-4. I think they beat Vanderbilt 5-4. Missouri, that's going to be a good game, but I think they beat Missouri, so 6-4. Beat Wofford 7-4. And their big game against Clemson, I think they lose to Clemson 7-5. So South Carolina goes 7-5. So we got Bama, Auburn, and Miami. So we got 2 more SEC schools and then an ACC school. And Auburn. So we're going to go Auburn first. So Auburn's first 3 games are, I think they're going to start 3-0. They play Alabama A&M. That should be a win. Cal, that should be a win. New Mexico, that should be a win. So they're 3-0 going into the Arkansas game. Going into playing Arkansas at home, I think they beat Arkansas. So they start 4-0. Then they get Oklahoma. I think that's where they lose their first game. So they're 4-1. Then they play at Georgia. Unfortunately, I think they also lose that game. So they're 4-2 going into their bye week. So good start to the season. So then they come out of the bye. They got Missouri on the road, Kentucky on the road, Vanderbilt at home. So they're 4-2. I think they lose to Missouri, so 4-3. Beat Kentucky 5-3. And they get bowl eligible by beating Vanderbilt, so 6-3. Then they go on their bye week. And then they come out of the bye and they play Louisiana Monroe. 7-3. That's a win. A&M, I think they dropped that one. 7-4. And then the Iron Bowl against Alabama. I think they lose that and go 7-5. I think a 7-5 season in year 2 under Hugh Freeze is a good stepping stone for year 3. So we've got Alabama and then Miami, Florida left to do scheduled predictions. And then we'll get back to regularly scheduled. So week 1, they play Alabama. Week 1, they play Western Kentucky at home. That's a win. Week 2, they play South Florida. Now, this game, when they played USF last year, it was only a 10-point game, and Alabama was favored by 3 touchdowns. And just a heads up, this is the game I'm probably going to be going to. The AlecSportsShow will probably be going to the South Florida Alabama football game on September 7th, 2024. But I think Alabama beats USF, so they're 2-0. Then they get Wisconsin at Camp Randall. So, and I think that is a loss. So Alabama's 2-1 going into conference play. going into conference play after the bye. So they get Vanderbilt, they get Georgia, Vanderbilt, South Carolina coming out of the bye. And I think they lose to Georgia, so they're 2-2. They beat Vanderbilt and South Carolina, so that's 2 wins, so that's 4-2. They beat Tennessee 5-2. Beat Missouri 6-2. So then they come off their second bye and they play LSU on the road. That's a win. 7-2. Beat Mercer 8-2. Lose to Oklahoma 8-3. And beat Auburn 9-3. So Alabama goes 9-3. And they also make the SEC championship game. So then the last team we're doing today is Miami, Florida. Apologize for all these ads popping up. So, Miami and Florida, they start the season out at UF, and they play Florida. I think Miami and Florida wins, so they're 1-0. They beat Florida A&M 2-0. Beat Ball State 3-0. Now, here's another big in-state game against USF. At USF. And I think they lose to USF. So they're 3-1 going into conference play. And they play at Cal. I think they beat Cal, so they're 4-1. Beat Georgia Tech 5-1. Lose to Louisville 5-2. Beat Duke 6-2. Lose to Florida State 6-3. Beat Virginia Tech 7-3. Lose to Wake Forest 7-4, and beat Syracuse 8-4. And again, all of these record predictions, it is way too early. So this is in January, before next season. And now, here we go back to here's my transfer portal. New QBs in town. Will Howard. And how this goes is these guys transfer from one school to another. Will Howard transferred from Kansas State to Ohio State. I like this transfer pickup for Ohio State. They kind of needed a quarterback since McCord went into the portal. I don't think Devin Brown or Lincoln Keynotes is ready to be the starting quarterback yet. And then Aaron Nolan's going to be a freshman, so I think he needs a little time to develop. So I like this move for Ohio State. Eli Holstein transferring from Alabama to Pitt. I like this for Pitt. This is a good quarterback pickup for them. They needed Yarnell. Nate Yarnell is going to be the starter, but I think if he struggles or gets hurt, that Eli Holstein will be the starting quarterback at Pitt. And I talked about this next one a little bit earlier. Reese Puffenbarger, Albany. He's transferred from Albany to Miami of Florida. I like this pickup for Miami of Florida. I've watched a lot of tape on Reese. He can sling the ball around the yard. Really good QB. I like it for Miami. Braylon Braxton. This one surprised me. I thought he would have stayed at Tulsa. But he's transferred from Tulsa to Marshall. Marshall needed a QB, and I think they got a really good one. I have watched a lot of tape on Braylon Braxton. Really good quarterback. And I like the move from Tulsa to Marshall for him. I think he's going to thrive in that Marshall offense next year. And then Dylan Morris, this one was a little surprising because I thought he would have stayed at Washington, but he's going from Washington to JMU. And JMU did need a new quarterback because they lost Michael Penix Jr., who's going pro. No, they lost Jordan. James Madison lost Jordan McLeod, who's in the portal. We don't know where he's going yet, but I like this move for Dylan Morris because he's going to get the start. New running backs in town. Jam Griffin, Ole Miss to Oregon State. I like this move for him because he's going to probably get a lot more carries at Oregon State than he would at Ole Miss. Even though there is a guy I'm going to talk about at the very end of this, at the end of the new running backs in town, who just committed to a new school last night. Penny Boone. He was the leading rusher at Toledo. He was from Toledo to Louisville. I like this move for Penny Boone. He jumps in the portal from Toledo, and now he's going to Louisville. I think he's doing this to improve his draft position, and I like the move. Jordan Waters, transferring from Duke to NC State. This is another one that when I first saw it, I was like, why is he transferring? But then I get it now. Duke has a new head coach, and I think he's going to do better at NC State. Raheem Rocket Sanders, transferred from Arkansas to South Carolina. This one makes a lot of sense. Arkansas's had a lot of turnover during the offseason. They've had at least 6 guys entered the portal, and they lost KJ Jefferson to UCF, and they lost Raheem Sanders to South Carolina. Evan Pryor stays in the state of Ohio, but he transfers from Ohio State to Cincinnati. The thing with Evan Pryor was he was buried on the depth chart at Ohio State. That is why he transferred and left and transferred to Cincinnati. And here's my wide receivers in the portal. So my number one wide receiver that I thought made a good choice where he transferred was Devin Price, transferred from FAU to Ole Miss. I think Devin Price is in for a big year at Ole Miss. Number 2, Noah Rogers from Ohio State to NC State. Noah Rogers was another guy that was just buried on the depth chart at Ohio State in the wide receiver room. The wide receiver room at Ohio State is loaded. You got Jeremiah Smith coming in. You got Ibuka probably coming back. Maybe Marvin Harrison. Carnell Tate, Brandon Ennis. So he jumps in the portal and goes somewhere where he thinks that he can probably get reps at wide receiver. And I like the move. Gage Loveton from Miami of Ohio to South Carolina. Now this one, I understand it. Gage Loveton helped Miami win the MAC, and now he's in the portal and he goes to South Carolina. He wants to improve his draft stock. I think that's the reason he chose South Carolina. Jaden Bray, transferred from Oklahoma State to West Virginia. This is a really good pickup for West Virginia. They needed wide receivers, and I think they got a really good one. As I say all the time, I watch a lot of film on these guys in the portal, And don't let these websites tell you that, oh, they're crystal ball to go somewhere, but then they go somewhere else. Listen to the people that actually know what they're talking about, like me and a guy I watch on TikTok, and I very much think y'all should go and watch him too. Rico knows. I've had him on the show before. And then the last guy, Ja'Cory Brooks, Alabama to Louisville. Ja'Cory Brooks was a guy that was kind of buried at Alabama on their depth chart for wide receivers. And I like the move for Ja'Cory Brooks over to Louisville. I think he's going to thrive at Louisville offense. If you're enjoying the video, leave a thumbs up and also comment down below a name in the transfer portal you think you can think of and where you think they'll transfer to. And ladies and gentlemen, I said stick around. I made a bet with y'all on my YouTube community that if Michigan won the national championship, I would have to say for 2 weeks in a row, Michigan is better than Ohio State. And it starts today. Michigan is better than Ohio State. Now back to the video. Here are my NBA upset picks for tonight. My first one is the Orlando Magic plus 5.5 to upset the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now this is the biggest game of the year for the Magic so far. And they've been shorthanded the last few games, and they may be shorthanded again tonight. But I think they can beat Minnesota. I really think they can. My next upset is the Raptors plus 4.5 to upset the Los Angeles Lakers. Now this is a West Coast game where you have to stay up late to watch it. But I think the Raptors can pull the upset here. I like the trade they made for Emmanuel Quickly and RJ Barrett. And I like how they've been playing since they got those two guys. I think that the Lakers, they've been struggling of late. So that is why I like the upset here. The Memphis Grizzlies plus 8.5 to upset the Dallas Mavericks. Now, you may say that I'm a little bonkers for picking this upset, but I think there is a real chance Memphis can pull the upset here, even without Ja Morant. I like Memphis plus 8.5 to pull the upset here. This is an 8 o'clock game on NBA TV. And my over-under play for the NBA today is over 240.5 points in the Pistons versus Kings game. I think there's going to be a lot of scoring in this game. And I think Keegan Murray and Cade Cunningham both go off and score a lot of points. And ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow's show will be at noon. And as long as I have power, because we are getting a storm where I live. But I will keep you updated. And if we have to do this show tonight, we will, to get it in. So y'all will be able to see my NFL wildcard round picks. I will keep you updated. As of now, plan on the video for tomorrow being at noon. If I still have power, which I'm hoping we will. But ladies and gentlemen, I do offer memberships. And I highly recommend purchasing a membership, as we are trying to grow this great community that we have here on YouTube with the AlecSportsShow community. We are trying to grow it. And if we get enough members for the memberships, I will be starting a Discord for the entire Alex Sports Show family. And if you're over on Twitch, the link to my YouTube is linked in my bio on Twitch. Come on over and give me and subscribe. We're trying to hit 2,100 subscribers by February 15th. So by my birthday. But ladies and gentlemen, that will do it for me today. I'm out of here. Ohio State, Michigan is better than Ohio State. I'm out. Peace.